Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised. Welcome back. It's Travelers on the Omnibus, ladies and gentlemen. A field trip through nerd and pop culture. I got the tagline right.
Oh, shit.
Hell yeah. My name's James McCarthy.
My name is Brady Davis.
I'm Jody Kite.
And, he's not here. Ethan Skinner's not here, ladies and gentlemen.
Vacant has replaced Ethan Skinner.
No, not Vacant.
The young one had things he would rather do than hang out with us.
Yeah.
I can't blame him.
He's interim.
Yeah.
Interim Ethan Skinner.
Interim Skinner, yeah. Now, Ethan is at, of all things, the Shinedown concert tonight in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Sorry.
We're not. No.
Sorry.
Do you, Ethan? It's fine.
Yeah. Now, legitimately, folks, thank you for stopping by because it means you enjoy us. And do the things you enjoy because you never know when you may not be able to again. That's a little bit of promise and a whole lot of bleakness. And I apologize if that sets you off wrong. But yeah, no. If it
costs an inordinate amount of money.
Save up though. Don't take out loans.
Don't credit card that
Spend
shit.
responsibly.
Don't take out loans to go to the Shinedown concert.
No.
Those payday loans will come back at you.
Oh yeah.
They're
a scam. Don't do them.
Yeah.
300% interest rate. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
there you go.
They're a bane on society and a poor tax.
I've made this joke before, but I'll make it again. If we were in Norway, Jody, what have you been doing?
I've been doing a couple things, actually. Today, my Kickstarter came in for the vintage comic book art cover art tarot deck, which I showed you guys a second ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening right now, you can also see pictures of these on our Instagram, Travelers on the Omnibus Instagram. Check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they look pretty sweet.
They're
really cool.
They're good card stock quality. All of the images are really like pop. If you like the retro look of those comics, mostly if you're familiar with the EC comics and Tales from a Crypt comics from the 50s,
any kind of like old horror comics,
weird fantasy
Don't
stuff.
Don't think about like superhero comics.
No.
This is the other comics.
Pulp comics from like the 30s to 50s mainly. Mm-hmm. Those are really cool. The coolest one to me is like the Wheel of Fortune card, which has the I think it's actually the Vault Keeper and not the Crypt Keeper, because there was a Crypt Keeper, a Vault Keeper, and then there was a witch. Yeah, they had three different mascots for their horror line.
Yeah, it was the Vault of Terror,
the Crypt of Horror.
Yeah, the Crypt of Horror, and
I want to say it's the Witch's Cauldron or some shit, but I can't remember exactly. EC Comics had like 30
Ethan,
or 40.
Look it up. Oh God, can't. We've now found the gear that is missing.
A little side note, since I mentioned EC Comics, Ray Bradbury had a couple of stories in some of the EC Comics. He did mostly the detective stuff / the weird fantasy, weird sci-fi aspect of it. So that came in. I watched a movie that came out quite a few years ago called Perfume. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Brady.
It sounds familiar, but I haven't watched it.
It has Alan Rickman and Dustin Hoffman in it. Those are, I think, the notable actors. I want to say it came out like 8 years ago. I don't know exactly, and I'm not looking it up because we don't have time for that. But the premise is you have an orphan.
It had to be probably at least both of them.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Alan Rickman.
You have
whose journal entries on the Harry Potter series revealed that he believed that Emma Watson's diction made her sound close to Albanian. Figure that out on your own time.
He also wanted to quit being Snape, which I think broke a lot of people's hearts. But whatever.
I got you on that.
Back to your thing.
Yeah, sure. Perfume is a really strange story. It's a period piece. It's set in France in around like 1760, or maybe even 1758, where a child is born in a fish market, and they go into all this history stories of how like people would just pop kids out and leave them on the street, and because most of the time they were stillborn because most of the poor people were malnourished and so forth and so on. But this one baby in particular started crying, and they hung the mother for trying to hide the body. So that was that, and that's our protagonist / antagonist.
Oh,
at an early age, he could smell things spectacularly. He could pick out scents from really far away and whatnot. And so he grows up basically in slave labor for the most part, and then weasels his way into being an assistant to a perfumer, who is played by Dustin Hoffman, who is getting older, so he's losing his sense of smell. And basically, he talks him into letting him be the assistant because he's able to replicate a very popular perfume and then perfect it.
Oh, wow.
Without knowing how to make measurements or anything, just by sense of smell. And then it gets really, really fucking dark.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
He is our protagonist / antagonist, and I'm calling him that because he's a murderer. He comes across a woman early on that he smells her, and he's obsessed with the smell of her, and she starts making noise because he keeps being really fucking creepy and following her, and so she starts to scream out, and he puts his hand over her mouth, and she suffocates, and he's just standing over her body, and you think he's probably freaking out because he just killed somebody. No, he's just trying to smell more of her. And then he's trying to replicate that smell throughout the whole movie by murdering women and trying to extract scents from them. So it's really, it's fucking out there. It's really strange. I can't say that I loved it. I've got a few friends. One of the reason I had the DVD is a friend of mine recommended it. It's I want you to watch it. Here's the DVD. And I watched it, and I don't know if it's overhyped, but I was it's okay. It's just a little, I like weird, but that kind of weird, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of film, that's for sure. And then I released my concept album on the Fearology podcast channel, Seven Friendly Sins, which...
By the Digital Devil.
It's introduced by J.L. Kite as a story about Anytown, USA, before it slowly gets taken over by demons who sing songs about the citizens, about their bad virtues and things of that nature. And so it's something else. I'm not saying it's good, because I'm not going to critique myself, because I don't, that's just a weird thing to do, I think. But I liked it. I liked the process of it. I put it out there. I put the link on my Facebook, but if anybody wants to check it out that's listening to this show, it's on the Fearology podcast. It's episode X.
We have the link in the description for the last episode from our top 5 wrestlers of all time. Also, I'll be putting it again as far as the description goes in this one as well.
So that's what I've been doing.
Cool.
If we were in Norway, Brady. That's how I think a Norwegian would say your name.
Sure.
There you go. What have you been up to, sir?
So I recently downloaded a game that I had heard about. It was on PlayStation 5, and it was only on the Xbox. But it recently released on Switch, and I was super excited about it. It's a game called Tunic. It's very much like Legend of Zelda, if made by the people who do Dark Souls. Not that it's necessarily super, super hard, but you're this little fox in this little cute tunic, and you just start washed up on this shore. And if you go to read a sign, you can read a word on the sign, and then there's all these weird symbols. Some stuff you just can't read. I went up to a well and you can't read. And you find pages of the actual instruction manual for the game. And some of it's translated and some of it's not. There are pictures, and you kind of have to just interpret the pictures. It's all just basically you will get an item, it doesn't hold your hand at all. Everything is, you just have to figure out everything by just, I press a button. Okay, nothing works right now, but my A works. If I press it real quick, I do a little dodge move. Okay, cool. Then I get a page that says, if I press A and then hold it, then he runs. Okay, cool. While moving. So you're just finding out things and just trial and error, and it really makes you explore everything. You're just looking for all these little hidden passages and everything. It's it's really interesting so far. I've only been playing it for about a day, but it is really, really cool. It's just a lot of trial and error and exploration, and the combat's where it gets a lot like Dark Souls, because you have to like watch the patterns of the enemies to jump in and hit them, because some things will do like a lot of damage on you, and you get like, I think it's like potions or something, but you have like the flask where you have so many, once you can gain so many of them, and it raises your life a little bit, and you have a stamina bar, so you can only like dodge so much. Attacking doesn't cause like the stamina bar to go down, it seems, but you'll find little things, and it's like, oh, I think this is a bomb. Let me throw it and see what it does. Oh, it catches things on fire. This bomb freezes things. This potion does this or something like that. So it's a pretty cool little game. I'm really interested in it. I like taking an old trope and then kind of doing it in a different way. So that's one thing that I've been doing. The other thing, I finished a show that I had, the first season of a show that just came out this year, and I had heard nothing but good things about it, but it was on Showtime, so I never watched it, because who the fuck has Showtime? But called Yellow Jackets. Have y'all heard of this?
I've heard of it, like, vaguely, but
yeah. So
part of that reason is St. Martin Yellow Jackets, class of 1998, represent.
Yeah, so it goes back and forth between 1996 and 2021. The past thing is this girls' soccer team. They win state. They're in like New Jersey, I think. They win state and they're going to nationals. One of the members is like, her parents are like really wealthy, so they charter a private plane. The plane crashes in the woods, like in the middle of nowhere. They're kind of in the mountains. They discover that there's a lake. A lot of them die. Like the head coach dies, and literally the only adult is second coach, whatever. For some reason, the assistant coach.
Yeah,
shit.
Assistant.
For some reason, that word just flew out of my brain.
There you go.
And it's just a whole bunch of these girls, and then the head coach's two sons, and that's it. And the assistant coach. And they're trying to survive, and it flashes forward to four of them who had survived, and they make it very clear like they didn't say anything of what happens. And I don't think this is really too much of a spoiler, because part of this is all done in the first episode, and then the very first scene, you see like this young girl running through the snow in the woods you hear animal calls in the background, like she's being chased or something. And then she falls into a pit of sharpened sticks and dies. And then this group of girls, these people wearing like furs all over their body and their face and everything. And one of them's got like a veil covering them with like antlers and shit. And they bleed this girl and they eat her. So
this is right up Jody's alley.
Yeah. So
this sounds like some Lord of the Flies shit.
So it starts but like it's showing you how it gets to that and what actually happened and everything. You don't find out every single thing, but like it's pretty interesting the way it goes back and forth, because somebody they start dealing with, there's a lot of things that they're dealing with, and like the four of them they're dealing with, and they're in the present day, like somebody's like blackmailing them, and then one of the boys who survived and he grew up, he ends up dead. They're trying to figure that out. It's really good. Like both the present day actresses and like the older people are really, really good, and the young cast is like great, and they look absolutely like they look like younger. Like they did a perfect casting job with it. It is a really interesting show, and I'm really excited for a second season. And
on HBO Max, or
it's on Showtime. I ended up just buying the DVD because I'm like I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I took a chance with it. But that's how I had to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
You might can like rent it somewhere, I don't know, or get a free thing of Showtime, I don't know. But it's really, really good. Yellow Jackets, it's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Jay, what have you been doing?
Oh God, thank God you said that. I didn't know what to do there. Now, three quick things. First off, I'm restarted Peaky Blinders. If you've got Netflix and you want to watch a once-in-a-generational television show. Please watch Peaky Blinders. It's Cillian Murphy's best work. It's Tom Hardy's best work. Pretty much if you're in that, it's Sam Neill's best work. Who else am I missing? It's Anna Taylor-Joy's best work. It's every British actor's best work. Period.
It's like post World War One, right?
It's post World War One. It's a Irish Catholic gypsy family that settles in Newcastle and slowly takes over all of England, and it's amazing. And you should watch it.
I watched the first season and like the first episode of the second season. For some reason, I didn't go back to it. I really liked it. I don't know why I never went back to it.
Yeah,
but what I've seen is a very good show.
Yeah, and Bill, very tiny spoilers. Like Billy Kimber is like the big bad of. Well, there's two big bads, but one doesn't get handled until season 2. But the one that does get handled in season 1 is Billy Kimber, and he feels very much like the boss of stage 1. Like it's like all these other little problems that they have whatsoever, and then Billy Kimber's like, oh, I'm gonna, and then he just gets taken out so easily. It just is. But then it's good then, and it just stays good throughout.
Is it a show like a slow burn on some of the like revealing of mysteries and things of that nature?
No, pretty much every season I think is a minimum 6, maybe maximum 8 episodes if I remember correctly.
Is each season its own arc with an ongoing arc?
There are for instance, Sam Neill's character carries on into season 2. Alfie Solomons, who's played by Tom Hardy, I think comes up mid to late season 2 and is there pretty much till the end. There's a lot. Each season focuses on typically one struggle that the family has.
Gotcha.
And again, you see the ascent of Thomas Shelby again.
It's more like
Cillian
The
Murphy.
Sopranos, where it's just you're seeing people live in this world more than like some mystery or
focus mostly on one group of people.
Mostly the Shelby family, which again is headed up by Cillian Murphy and his older brother Arthur, a bunch of younger brothers, their Aunt Polly, their cousin Ada. Like I don't want to say anymore. If you have never seen it, sit down. I said it to lead it off. It's a once in a generational TV series, and everybody should watch it. I rarely give hard recommendations like that.
Right. Which is, I watched the first couple episodes, and like Brady, I just didn't lose interest in the show, but I started watching other things.
I think that like something else that I really wanted to watch came out.
That could be it too.
I went to that, and then I just never went back.
Same.
For me, anything that involves Ireland in any tacit form,
I do love Ireland a lot.
I will stay with it.
I do love, and I love Cillian Murphy, like in everything I've seen him in, even Breakfast on Pluto.
Yeah. So because we got Tubi to watch Mandy, I've now been getting YouTube commercials for Tubi. And one of the things that I had was Shark Side of the Moon. It is a Tubi original, so you can imagine how much money they had to put forward to it. But it was
$5.
It was
whatever they had in their pockets.
It's produced by the classic production house, The Asylum. I'm going to spoil the opening 2 minutes.
Oh baby!
It is the Soviet Union.
Oh, there you
and
go.
They are developing shark hybrid people. But they keep them in a tank that has a laser net, except somebody knocks a radio into the net and it fails. And then this happens in the first 2 minutes. And the sharks get out, and then they get them all onto the spaceship and they blast them to the moon with one scientist. The other scientist sacrificed himself to the shark hybrids. Then it is present day Cape Canaveral, and they shoot a spaceship to the moon, but the Van Allen belts make it crash into the moon. And then they go outside, and when they go outside, they're attacked by sharks swimming in the moon. Now, when you say swimming in the moon, it's like there's water on the moon. No, in the moon rocks. They're swimming in the moon rocks. And then, like, there's a trap, and they don't know where the trap came from because they're starting to, they're trying to deal with the fact that there's sharks on the fucking moon. In fact, the tagline that sold me on the movie was, "Why are there sharks on the moon?" Except that these sharks have arms and legs.
Oh.
So they're like, I would be more like, motherfucker, why do they got arms and legs?
I think I'm having a stroke right
and
now.
Then the Russian that launched with the sharks is on the moon without a helmet or a spacesuit, and he's talking
those
to
cost
them.
Money.
and there's talking to. It's like, And like they established, well, the reason why this happened is because we had algae on the spaceship, and they just put some of the algae on my back, and now I can breathe on the moon.
Oh wow! If it's only that easy, then why aren't we going to the moon right now?
And then one of the sharks is the queen shark, and you find out that they're reproducing through asexual reproduction.
Oh,
and so they have like thousands upon millions of baby sharks in jars, and they're hoping to get back to Earth.
So, what about combining a shark and a human makes them reproduce asexually? Because sharks don't reproduce asexually.
I'm glad you asked that, Brady. So the shark hybrids try to get back to Earth, and they haven't been able to because they don't have a spaceship. But now they have a spaceship that can get them back. Only the good guys blow it up, and then the good guys end up flying back to Earth on the Russian spaceship that went up there, and then they crash into the sea. And the only two people left are the commander. The head scientist, who wasn't initially the head scientist, because the original head scientist or engineer, I forgot which, she had appendicitis, and they said, it's like, her appendix is about to explode. It's like, no, I can make it. It's like, no, we have to postpone the mission. We can't postpone the mission. So they get a dude on a motorcycle to be the engineer. That's how I understood it. Please understand, I also watched this while jogging at night. This was all kind of a thing that I was doing at the same time. So they land, and there's a Russian woman, and she's actually a hybrid, but she actually looks more human than hybrid. And then she starts to asexually reproduce, and the last part of the movie is her diving in the ocean after shooting a baby out of her womb at the engineer, and then she goes under the water, and there's like 15 baby shark hybrids, and the lady says the very end, "Oh God, we're fucked," and they cut off "fucked" because I guess they didn't want an R rating.
We would like to thank James McCarthy for his complete synopsis of
Shark Side of the Moon.
Next week, I'll be giving my rendition of Velocipaster. He's a dinosaur for the Lord.
Yep. And then we'll combine for Shark Exorcist, which will be the combo of those two.
There's
movies.
already a movie called Shark Exorcist.
I know. That's why you and I are going to give them the combo review.
Maybe humanity was a mistake.
No, humanity was not a mistake. Shark hybrids clearly were. This documentary proves it. Yeah. So I watched that. And then finally, because I wanted to wash the taste of bad space out of my mouth, I played the next episode of our Spelljammer campaign, which was supposed to have a third person, but you didn't show up, did you, Tommy? No, you didn't. And so we had to completely scrap the plans,
shame, Tommy.
Because your character being there was necessary for the whole plot to get started on that one. So instead, we had to do random space adventures in Spelljammer. And I will say this. Typically, when you have random encounters in D&D, it's you roll a D100, you check a chart, and that's how you go with it. That's pretty much what happened here. I like the variety in the random chart that they have in there. You might be saddling up to a pod of space whales. You might be attacked by space pirates. You might be flying through an asteroid field and might be completely dangerous for you. This one was space pirates. It was pretty cool. It ended up being in 3 phases. First, it started as boat-to-boat combat. And then the pirate boat was able to basically take a battering ram on the front and just like plow into the back. And then like people like assailed the ship, so now they're on the ship. And then during that fight, the paladin got knocked out into the astral sea, so he's floating in space. But then he managed to land on the other ship and managed to take out the Spelljammer who was flying that ship, which then caused that ship to violently spin out of control and like disintegrate into a million pieces. So he had to jump back out into the astral sea in order to get back to his own ship. Meanwhile, the group's pet mimic was just eating people and throwing them out into space.
Oh, cool.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, while the bard had to be the Spelljammer piloting the main ship. So it was very cool.
That's good. So I like my random encounters. I'll roll 3 D10s and go to a page number.
There you go. All right, you are encountering Grappling Hook.
No. Monster Manual J. They're all monsters, my man.
No. If you wanted to be truly random, it would be all the books.
No.
It would be all the books. It's like you encounter Barcode. That would be cool to like space barcodes, like, and you had to fight them, and you had to have like
space barcodes,
and you had to like scan them in order to be able to.
Sounds like something that would be in Numenera.
Yeah, that's very true.
It could
they
definitely.
do have weaperized memes.
Mm-hmm.
That is an enemy in Numenera.
No, definitely.
Yeah. There you go. So that pretty much wraps up my week. Good space, bad space, and not space at all. With
Dead
Peaky
space.
Blinders.
That reminds me, this weekend, friends of the pod, Jason Holder and Michael Hill and his fiance,
Caidlin. Shout out to Caidlin.
We're hanging out, and we were, because Holder's wanting to do a D&D campaign at his, on the weekends, like at his home or somewhere with just a few people, and we were talking about like races, and he was like, no weird races, and we kept naming all these weird races, and he kept saying no, and he was like, no Aarakocra, like he said that beforehand, no Aarakocra, and I was like, well, yeah, we assumed that, and like nobody even like thought of that, because Aarakocras break the game. But I was like, you could maybe do a cool thing where like you're an entire party is like Aarakocra, and you could use like the Tasha's thing where you can give them, you know, the in whatever you want, so you didn't all have to be like one or
that's
two
how they handle
things.
The new races in Spelljammer.
All new races,
+2 and 1 and +1 and
all new races. I think past Tasha's does that, and you could be like Sky Pirates or something like that. I think that would be an interesting thing to do.
Oh, that'd be cool, like a Skies of Arcadia style.
That'd be
cool.
I love that game. Something like that would be cool, but I just don't have the energy to create a campaign like that. So I would never do that.
Run Spelljammer and just don't have it in space. Just have it up in the clouds.
Yeah, that's a lot of work too. I've tried running a D&D campaign.
Oh,
before,
wait, Aaron Bernard's calling out. Yeah. Okay, I'll tell him that. Fuck you, Brady.
I figured that.
There you go. There you go.
I could run a D&D campaign right now. I'm kidding.
You could.
I could.
Yeah. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have enjoyed this so far, have enjoyed us in the past, and you'd like to share this with your friends, we can be found on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Anchor. Again, that's Spotify, Apple, Google. I have a Google.
You were almost super professional there.
Yeah, I know. I have a Google in my nose. I want to pull it. Clunk. All right, there we go.
Gross.
Let me try this again. Spotify, Apple, Google, and Anchor. I combined Google and Anchor.
Ganker.
Oh my God, Google's going to buy Anchor from Spotify.
Probably.
Oh my God.
Please no.
How will our hosting happen? Also, if you'd like to get in touch with us, travelersontheomnibus@gmail.com. Again, that's travelers, 1L, on the omnibus@gmail.com. We have some feedback this week. It's from a buddy, John, who has listened to the episode, and he had a question for Brady. Actually, he had a recommendation to me, to Brady, and basically put like this: Brady, please do your impassioned Macho Man Randy Savage defense on why he should be on the top 5. You were robbed of that, according to John, and it needs to be returned to you.
Hate to burst your bubble, but it's fine. I don't even remember exactly what I was going to say.
John needs to hear this. He's a huge Macho Mark.
Yeah, the Macho Man is awesome. He's the cream of the crop. So, but
cream rises to the top.
Basically, compared to a lot of other people, Macho Man was less selfish than a lot of his peers, with one specific one in mind, but he wasn't afraid.
Do you mean Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, he wasn't afraid to lose a match if it was good for the
story. He was a best for business kind of guy.
Like he was this is what the story or the match needs.
This is a DDP story. Arn Anderson goes up to Macho Man and DDP. So gentlemen, what's going to be the finish tonight? Macho Man looks up. What I think is going to happen is a diamond cutter. Yeah, and Arn guy goes. So, well, Dallas, I hope you realize how big of a thing this is. It's like yep. And then Dallas wrote him a wonderful Christmas card and sent it to him. And then like 2 months later, after he'd received the card, Macho Man comes up to him. Macho Man's like super fucking intense always because he was Randy Savage, or Randy Poffo, if I'm going to go by how his taxes were filed. And he goes up and like DDP was scared because he was like coming up to him with like these fucking intense fucking eyes. Like, oh, what did I do to piss
Sin
Macho
for the
off?
man.
Yeah, it's like, there you go. No, and then he hugged me and said, like, no one in this business has ever done that for me. And I just, first of all, just a shout out to DDP and just how wonderful a human being he was.
He's still a great human being.
Yeah.
DDP, I didn't get a chance to bring this up because we were talking a lot, but like DDP, he was almost on my top 5. He's one of my favorite wrestlers. Like he's definitely in my top 10.
He's a very decent human being too.
Like when he's just a cool dude, it seems like, and he was one of my favorite. Whenever I would watch anything on WCW, like he was one of my favorite guys to watch. I love the old give me DDP in tight ass jeans and taped up ribs, poorly taped up ribs.
Yeah, if they're properly taped up, they're actually injured.
Coming out to similar but legally distinct from Smells Like Teen Spirit.
He was one of the most ECW-like wrestlers in WCW as far as his attitude and his look.
And he was like 40 when he started.
He
was old as shit.
He
started out as a manager and commentator, and then at 35, hey, I'm going to try this wrestling thing out, see what works.
Yeah, and he was very good at it. And
then Stone Cold and Mick Foley threw cookies into his bed.
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite stories from Mankind. Oh my God, that's great. A tale of blood and sweat socks.
Yeah, and he's helped a lot of older wrestlers like get back on a good path.
He helped Jake the Snake.
And
Scott
Hall.
Rest in peace, Scott.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Macho.
Yeah, that too. Yep.
But yeah, Macho Man, like, he had his problems, but like I think a big thing is that overall he was. It wasn't what's best for me. It's what's best for the story. It's what's best for the match. What's the best story that we can tell with the match. What needs to happen. Not I'm gonna throw my weight around. Now maybe later in WCW that was different. I don't know. I don't remember too much from like later WCW because I just stopped watching that shit.
Well, for me, the fact that Vince said, "Okay, you're done. You can't do it anymore. You don't need to be wrestling more. Don't need to be doing any of these things. Like you'll be on color. You'll be doing all these things." And he goes, "I'll show you what." And then like he goes over to the other side, and then for almost another decade,
right,
he's at the top of the heap just by, I think, power of his own charisma and his own ability in the ring.
Yeah,
definitely.
Arguably the best wrestled match of a WrestleMania of all time between him and Ricky Steamboat.
Oh yeah,
that was great.
That was a really great match.
But yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. But again, passenger feedback, travelers on the omnibus at gmail.com. Also, we're actually going to get the Instagram back up and running. I mentioned it earlier. We're going to start getting some more pictures and photos on there. Again, you'll see the photos from the tarot cards posted same day as the episode. Some of the things will wait a little bit. Like, for instance, we have the top 5 chalkboard behind me now, and we're going to actually post that up here again. You'll be seeing this before this actually goes out. But yeah, just a little bit thing to get a little bit more connected to y'all. So again, Instagram, Travelers on the Omnibus, and hopefully adding a few more socials here in the coming weeks. Yeah.
Sweet.
So we mentioned it briefly in the last episode, but at least 3 of us, and now I think by this time, like everybody around that table probably watched Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the Netflix anime series, 10 episodes, half an hour apiece. I will save my overall opinion of it more towards the end here, because our main topic is actually Cyberpunk, but not just Edgerunners, not just the Cyberpunk series as created by Mike Pondsmith out of Artel Saurian Games, but actually the genre of cyberpunk itself, from its humble beginnings, I would say in the late 60s, early 70s, all the way to today, what it has influenced, where it comes from. And I've been given the wonderful and hopefully non-controversial opening statement on this, and I'm going to be stealing it from Lawrence Person, I believe, of the Nova Express, which was a science fiction fanzine. And he tried the best, and I think he did the best in defining cyberpunk as a genre. Classic cyberpunk characters were marginalized, alienated loners who lived on the edge of society in generally dystopic futures where daily life was impacted by the rapid technological change, a ubiquitous data sphere of computerized information, and invasive modification of the human body. Yeah,
I would have to agree.
Yeah, Pearson nailed it right on the head as far as the image and kind of what you're focusing on.
That covers
in
everything
cyberpunk.
When you're talking about like what is under the umbrella of cyberpunk. It's those things,
because there are a lot of layers of stuff going on there.
Yeah.
All right. So I pitch it to the gentleman with me. Who wants to talk about what in the world of cyberpunk?
I mean, we're going to start from the beginning-ish.
We don't have to start from the beginning. We could start with like the
the first experiences with it. Like I could talk with my first experience, because you mentioned we were talking about a couple of animated things earlier before we got started on the show, and Akira was like one of the first like adult animes I ever saw.
Yeah.
And even though we said before the show it's more punk than it is cyberpunk, because it's more of the dystopian society
Yeah.
that they live in and the technology that they have than there is Cyberpunk. I would say Ghost in the Shell and Alita, Battle Angel Alita, is probably, as far as Cyberpunk goes, more Cyberpunk in whole than Akira is. Although Akira shares almost every other layer
it's right on the line, definitely,
of the genre.
I think Akira is thoroughly in Cyberpunk.
Do you think so?
To the point where if you were to tell me what are the two crystal points where this is Cyberpunk, like we can talk about Philip K. Dick and a lot of his novels and some of the other stuff that's going on.
Right.
Zelazny, actually, which we've mentioned before when we've talked about Amber, his fantasy stuff ended up being more potent, but he did a lot of work that is very proto Cyberpunk. But for me, the two crystal points where this is Cyberpunk is 1982's Akira, not the movie, but the initial publication of the first manga.
Yeah.
And William Gibson's Neuromancer. As far as the crystal point, and the reason why I focus on Neuromancer than maybe some of the earlier stuff is because that's the introduction of realized idea of virtual reality in media as far as that goes.
Right.
But yeah, that's where I think the two crystal points are. So no, I believe biker punks, clearly marginalized people in society, mega corporations, mega governments,
heavy advertisements everywhere. You couldn't avoid the ads if you wanted to.
What's the Tokyo equivalent to Times Square? Because Times Square also to me looks
shit.
It's not the Tokyo pretty much has boroughs like New York does. You have Akihabara.
Starts with an S, I think.
It's
Shibuya.
Shibuya, Tokyo.
Shibuya is the center.
When you look at it's neon, it's advertisements, it's media just being thrown at you. Same thing with Times Square. There's a couple other spots on the earth that I cannot name, but like are just floating around in my brain there, like the way Shibuya was. And I apologize to anyone who was insulted by the fact we couldn't bring up like one of the more touristy spot. Like when you think of Tokyo, Shibuya Center is like one of the things you think about.
I think of Akihabara, but I'm a nerd, so that's where all the nerd shit is.
That's where the arcade centers are.
That's where most of the arcades used to be before coronavirus. Sega shut theirs down. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But also, a lot like Akira and a lot of aesthetics with actual cyber integration is Ghost in the Shell.
That's about a decade later, but
which came later.
But as far as like an introduction to stuff, absolutely, that's a great vector point too.
I saw Akira soon after it came out, and that's what got me into anime. But again, it stood out because it's very dark, brooding. You have it's got a little bit of a noir feel to Akira, a little bit, but not much really.
Well,
when Tetsuo goes missing, they have to go look for him. So
that to me, I don't know. For me, that's more of the American side of cyberpunk as far as that goes. Like Neuromancer is very noir. Like I've always considered the Terminator to be cyberpunk adjacent at the very least, because you're not so much dealing with. It takes place in the near future, effectively, or in kind of an alternate
reality of the future,
where the people from the near future are coming back to try to stop a cataclysm that will end up, wiping everything out. You do have, Sarah Connor Connor's not, a princess. She's not a general.
Just a regular person.
She's working a regular 9 to 5 and being hunted down because her son will eventually make sure that humans don't get eradicated.
But that's only because the sun's father. Anyway, that movie has a paradox.
But those movies have multiple paradoxes.
But the first one specifically has a paradox in it to where. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about, though.
I think it is what we're talking about in the very good. I think you could maybe qualify that as being cyberpunk. Again, at the very least, it's cyberpunk adjacent. Like the actual
it toes the line. I don't know if I'd consider it, but it toes the line.
See, because I think of when I think of cyberpunk, the term neon noir comes into mind. If you're thinking about Blade Runner specifically, like neon noir, but I think the club that they go to, it was actually James Cameron's way of saying what he thought the Terminator was, which was tech noir.
Yeah.
Because there's this noir element of this kind of like it's a gritty, effectively military veteran sent back in time to save a woman, and he doesn't know that he's John Connor's father, but John Connor does.
Right.
And he had to send his father back to die so that he could be born.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. One thing I love about the ending for Terminator is like, if you think about this, your head would explode. Like she's literally saying to that so that he understands why these things had to happen the way they did, because everything was kind of a closed loop on the other end. Like, it's one of the reasons why I respect Terminator 3 so much, because they actually had the guts to blow up the world like it had to happen.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I liked. But even then, I like that they had the guts to do it. I don't necessarily like that they
I think
did
the way
it because it undoes all the really good stuff that was done in Judgment Day.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and the notion that there is no fate. Like, this doesn't have to happen. Something else could happen.
Yeah.
And that's the reason. And something good could come of
right.
it.
Back to Cyberpunk proper. So like Akira doesn't have much noir in it. How important is noir in Cyberpunk? Because Ghost in the Shell is very noir-like in a lot of ways. It's got a lot of Blade Runner aspects to the original Ghost in the Shell film.
Neuromancer, I would say Johnny Mnemonic is very
Johnny
noir.
Mnemonic also, but it's
and I'm speaking of the Gibson book, not the movie.
It's been a while since I've seen the movie or read the book, so I can't really speak on it now. But I do remember enjoying it quite a lot.
I don't think noir is exactly necessary in that. I think it's something that can be there, but I don't think it's
atmosphere can be.
I think on
just
the American side of things, I think it's more prevalent. I do agree with you.
Oftentimes.
I don't agree.
Because
I agree with you that it doesn't have to
do
be there.
like noir, a mystery thing in like a futuristic cyberpunk thing.
I mean Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. That's
Blade Runner, Altered Carbon, things like that. Like, it's easy to do those types of things in
the mystery.
In that.
Well, then, okay, so now we're bringing up, in a lot of ways, Philip K. Dick. I think Minority Report also kind of flows from
That's
that
true.
as well.
Minority Report, yeah.
I think the thing. So okay. I think something that maybe pushes some things like to be adjacent and not necessarily outright cyberpunk is that oftentimes when it comes to cyberpunk, you're looking at the lower class people, the people who are actually struggling, like you're actually following them,
like a dystopian, like downtrodden society.
If you're not doing like the noir type thing where you're like trying to solve some kind of mystery or something like that, oftentimes you are like the most common people that you're messing around with are the people who they're the ones that are being oppressed by the corporation or the government.
Right.
Or whatever.
I think that's just a hallmark. Like, I think Cyberpunk explores it a lot better and more, and I would think closer to the bone, because it's always near future. So it's our time, but maybe 20 years ahead. So this is where in our lifetimes we could see it.
You're talking about Cyberpunk proper,
I'm talking about
the genre.
I'm talking about specifically Cyberpunk being more near future in the fact that, like, again, you look at Blade Runner. Blade Runner took place in the distant future of 1990 something or other. Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah, usually they don't skip far enough ahead as far as, or I guess they didn't plan for. They didn't know the I don't know what the opposite term is for diminishing returns, but the doubling of technology, because Cyberpunk, the tabletop RPG, was written published in 1988.
Yeah.
And it's called 2020. So like,
actually, it was initially called Cyberpunk. Then its next edition was Cyberpunk 2020.
Right.
Okay.
And then its next edition after that is Cyberpunk Red, which is not Cyberpunk 2077. That's how far in the future the timeline goes, thanks to CD Projekt Red. But it takes place in 2045.
Right. So, but soon after, at 1988, they said, okay, 2020 is the time period.
Yeah,
so it was like 20 years in the future, ish, 20, 30 years in the future, not very far.
Yeah.
Because, one of the jokes a few years back in 2015 was like, we're getting close to Back to the Future 2 time period because it was set in 2015.
And all we got is self-lacing shoes, which I think... Let me say, I think the rise of consumer, not the rise, but the speed at which consumer electronics has iterated to the point where we have the communicators from Star Trek. We had those 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And then now we're close to maybe the comm badges. Like you have a Bluetooth thing that you can like you can tap. And,
Yeah,
like,
they
you're
have
talking with
Bluetooth
people.
comm badges. Yeah.
And like automatic opening doors and things like that. We've had
and self-lacing shoelaces. Thankfully, thank God. But no flying cars.
Can't wear your shoes because they need to update.
Take a slight tangent real quick. Art imitating life, life imitating art as far as technology goes. Someone watched Star Trek and said, I want to make sliding doors happen. And then 3 years after the show was canceled, someone decided to put pressure plates underneath where you stepped on right before you got into a door, and automatic doors happened because of Star Trek. Cool. Someone was inspired by watching TV and sci-fi.
That's cool.
But virtual reality exists for the same reason.
Going back to my point about because it's near future, the social consciousness is very close to the bone. It's very you're literally like dealing with the stuff in that, and without any kind of heavy extrapolation. Like you're not talking about like. Try not to get political, but if you're talking about an immigrant crisis, say in Star Trek, then you're talking about immigrants from two separate planets that are alien, but you're basically the metaphor kind of blurs it. Right. Whereas if you were talking about that in kind of a cyberpunk state, you're actually talking about people that would be around now.
Yeah.
About not being political, I would say sci-fi is political. Like that's the whole.
Oh no,
that's the whole point of sci-fi.
No. I'm not saying that science fiction isn't being political. It's I'm saying I'm trying not to be political. I'm just trying to explain this as dryly as I possibly
can. Like how Roddenberry did in the original series, Star Trek, where they had an episode where like there was a planet of two races. One had like half color on one side, half color.
Black on the left,
black on the left,
right.
and then in reverse, and they hated each other because they looked different, and he was talking about racial stuff that was happening at the time.
That has like one of my favorite titles in science fiction. It's like this, may this place be your last battleground, or something like that.
Right.
To the Star Trek fans out there, I apologize. No, it's. I would almost say if you're not being political with your science fiction, one way or the other, I don't think you're really using the genre correctly.
I think you're doing it and you're just not being
unless you're making
at that point it's science fantasy and not so much science fiction.
Unless you're making fun of everything like Galaxy Quest.
Yeah. Or Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash, which was actually a kind of a lambasting of the cyberpunk tropes that ended up winning awards, including the Philip K. Dick Award for effectively the best cyberpunk.
That's hilarious.
I tried to. I still haven't gotten back to reading Snow Crash because
you also tried Neuromancer and it was kind of heavy.
I didn't even attempt Neuromancer, to be honest, because it's I've heard it's a lot, and
if you haven't read Snow Crash, to show you how on the nose the joking in that is, and I call it joking. You can call it parody, however you want to do it, but the person that you are to follow in that story's name is Hero Protagonist.
Yeah. I think that one goes so far where it goes around and it's annoying.
To me, it passes through satire and becomes the genre again. It's so weird.
There's like just pages and pages where he's just talking to this AI thing, and it
does it make you feel better now to know that that's more parody than anything else?
I don't know. Like I feel like it's something that was called parody, and then it circled back around to not being parody and just being the stuff and being so like I don't know. It's hard for me to fully judge it because I haven't finished the book, and I don't even know if I'm gonna ever get around to finishing the book. But yeah,
Cyberpunk is weird because the things that are share a lot of the tropes to be what we think as cyberpunk don't really hold a lot of other similarities as far as some like a storytelling in some ways. So that's
elaborate on that.
Well, like for example, I could say Blade Runner is a cyberpunk story. It's got film noir examples, but it's got retrofuturism in it as well, because they use like what looks like old fashioned typewriters, and there's a lot of like old stuff that they repurpose or whatnot, because I can't remember why, but there were some equipments that they used that were like older machine kind of things that they repurposed for whatever they needed it for.
I think a lot of that retrofuturism comes from them not appreciating how quick things again, how quickly,
It could have been.
especially in consumer electronics, how quickly that iterated into like things that we thought we weren't going to have 100 years
and also
have now.
And also the there was a lot of one thing I like about films like and stories like Blade Runner is that it's film noir, and a lot of people have aesthetics from the 40s and 50s. Like, you know, the girl has the bouffant hair, you know, Harrison Ford has the old, you know, the hairstyle and the PI,
the jacket.
The jacket.
That definitely
and,
to me is where the noir comes in.
Right,
like
noir.
100% noir.
But then you have so there's a broad fashion sense of different characters and things like that as well. You know, whereas I think Ghost in the Shell was heavily inspired by Blade Runner directly. Whereas most of the fashion sense in Ghost in the Shell, with the exception of the one guy who is definitely the Harrison Ford character, pretty much is all futuristic. You know, the Major hardly ever wears any clothes because she doesn't have any nipples because she's like all fucking cyberware for the most
she's
part.
Completely cybernetic body.
Yeah,
she
right.
just has the
brain. That's it. She's a cyborg for the most part.
Yeah.
See, what's weird about that to me, like you mentioned, like how it maybe doesn't fit in. I think that was one of the goals for like for the authors of Cyberpunk,
right?
For in far as generating this thing, because there's a lot of, I don't know, for the best part to attempt, like it's an attempt to like get away from the hero with 1,000 faces,
right?
The William Campbell, or not the William
Joseph Campbell.
No, Joseph Campbell. Yeah,
and getting away from the notion of these heroes always do the same things in the same ways, and we're trying to maybe tell stories in a different way.
The more flaws you have, the better your character is going to be. For the most part, I mean,
not necessarily.
Well, to have a flawed character,
a
flawed character
are better than non-flawed characters most of the time. It takes
you have to have
a very special thing to.
I will tacitly disagree with that. I think flawed or unflawed, I just think it's how well that character is realized. Now, do I think flaws tend to go more towards realism because there are no perfect people? Yes, I'll grant that, and I will definitely say that. But to me, just adding flaws to people or adding flaws to a character doesn't make them more human. It just makes them more flawed.
No.
It's how well they're written.
Yeah, I mean that's
flaws, and how well those flaws.
That's
are
not
realized.
what I was. I wasn't saying like, okay, well, he needs to be an alcoholic or he needs to be, an abusive person or whatever. Harrison Ford just hated robots.
Yeah,
like that was his main thing. It's like, I just hate these replicants.
But you know who also hated robots? Del Spooner, which I believe was Will Smith's character, and that didn't work because it came off more melodramatic.
It was very melodramatic.
Yeah. So I will say yes, having more flaws tends to make it more real because people aren't perfect. But I believe it's just in the way it is ends up being delivered. And the way, like, for as much as we can go into this maybe a little bit, as much as Harrison Ford didn't like being in Blade Runner, I think he ended up pulling out a very good performance when it was just him. And pretty much any scene other than him with
Rachel.
Sean Young, thank you. I wasn't going to name the character that I want to name the actress because
didn't know what you were looking for.
Because to me, there was a personal disconnect between the two of them, and you can kind of see it in the way that they end up acting out.
Yeah, your characters just have to have. I mean, that's in any genre. You have to have layers. Whether they're flaws or not, or whether they have flaws, heavy flaws or not heavy flaws.
Yeah, I don't think it's impossible to write a story where the main character has no flaws, but I think it makes it like it's much harder to do. At
some point, they had to give Superman weaknesses. Yeah. Retroactively had to give him weaknesses.
That's why there's less. And this is a tangent, but that's why there's less. I think that there's because I really like Superman as a character,
right?
But I think that it's harder to create a good Superman story than it is, say, a Batman story. There's tons and tons of good Batman stories because it's easy.
Because he's immortal.
Because he's mortal. Although more often they make him seem less and less moral. They but that's here neither here nor there. But it's very, very hard to create a good story for Superman, but it is possible because they're out there and I've read them and they're really, really good.
Whatever Happened to the Men of Tomorrow, Alan Moore.
Yeah.
I just wanna throw
And
that out there.
I know you don't like this guy, but All-Star Superman. That this is Superman at some of his most powerful, but he finds interesting things to do with the character. So, but again, this is a tangent.
Superman's weakness isn't kryptonite. Superman's weakness is his mortal friends and family.
Yes, that is oftentimes the best way to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think we've kind of gotten off to a tangent.
We did.
But some of the things that I think are very that you see a lot in Cyberpunk are and this is a question that's brought up in Ghost in the Shell, that's brought up in Cyberpunk Edgerunners, that's brought up in Blade Runner. It's what does it mean to be human? When does the line of human stop and something else begins?
Well, I mean that goes all the way back to Greece and the ship of Theseus
question.
It's like how
My
much
favorite paradox.
There you go. How much of it can you replace while still being able to call it the original? Like at what point? Which I think. Of
what
all
is
things,
it about us that makes us human?
Yeah, and I think again, as far as the starkest difference in that, Mike Pondsmith, I think, knocked out of the park with Cyberpunk, and the fact that this notion of cyber psychosis, of the fact that you've pulled so much of the human out of you. How does your mind relate to the fact that you're now made of nothing but chrome and hate? And you see that in Edgerunners, but you also see it throughout you see it throughout tremendously in the pen and paper RPG. You see it, and to me, I think it's one of the detriments for the Cyberpunk 2077 game is the fact you can load up a lot more on cybernetics, and that, in my opinion, than you should be able to without going.
That was a game idea
to be a power fantasy.
You want
because to be more accessible, people want
cybernetic stuff.
Yeah, people want to be RoboCop without having to deal with the repercussions of it.
Is RoboCop Cyberpunk?
Ooh, I would.
That's close.
Yeah.
I think the thing that necessary because to me, so Cyberpunk is not just sci-fi but dirty. There is the satire. There is the oppressive corporation.
It's very dystopian.
There's the dystopian. I think the big thing that keeps that one, and I think also I would argue something like Minority Report, is that it's focusing on a more powerful. It's focusing on cops, I think most of the time,
and military,
and I think most of the time, Cyberpunk usually more focuses on, unless you're doing a noir thing, and then it's focusing more on the dregs of society.
So RoboCop is more of a futuristic revenge story. It has
some of the tropes, and I think it's close, but I don't.
The revenge to me is only half of that. The other half is I think there's this, and there's a lot of argument to be made there. I don't see it as elevating cops. I just see as this one guy who went out and tried to do good, by the world, and he ends up getting complete
and loses his humanity for the most part.
Most of his humanity, he had a family that's all ripped away from him. I say no. RoboCop is firmly cyberpunk. It's firmly cyberpunk. It has all of the tropes. We're taking a guy and we're rebuilding him from what was basically made nothing. And even then, we're still putting the one caveat that if they go after the fucking corporation, the whole thing fucking shuts down and doesn't work. So I think even with the I think the satire helps it to be palatable. I don't think that movie gets made without those little tongue-in-cheek kind of humorous.
I think another thing that I don't agree, and this is semantics. This is arguing what is and what isn't metal. But I think something that keeps it out of that is the he's the only person with cybernetic enhancements. They're not to the point where it's widespread. So you get that. So you get that questioning of what makes a human a human. But it's not a part of society. I think that's a big part where it's a widespread thing to where this is something that we deal with in society instead of just this is just one dude. Okay.
We don't get
to me that's the thing. But again, this is
right, and I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with either of you. I will say though that RoboCop does focus on mainly on Murphy, his experiences in his family. We really don't get a lot of the whole world that they're in, or whatever the city that they're in, with the exception of the gang, the hired thugs.
I'll strike back against that too. No, I think you don't get it told super explicitly to you. I think a lot of it is just the background stuff. Like you have like the rampant crime in Detroit. You have the television that is literally inane pablum. When the big catchphrase is, I'll buy that for $1. Like this idea that everybody's being crushed down. And it's, of all things, it's like the cops and the government aren't the ones doing it because they're fucking overloaded as it. It's OCP and it's all these corporations looking to get in. Again, to me, like there's a lot of cyberpunk hallmark there that I think it's firmly in there.
I think, yeah. For me personally, I have to say that it's like very close, but I don't think it is. But that's just me. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's really more of a gut reaction. Like I said, this is not like
there's definitely some subtleties there with like how bad society is, but we really don't get a whole picture of everything because it's focused so much on Murphy and his revenge story. And the one corporation that we know of for the most part.
How much of Blade Runner is focused like mostly solely on Deckard's character and what he's trying to figure out.
Yeah, but you get a great representation of the world just when he goes into like Chinatown for like 10 minutes. Compared to RoboCop for the most part.
No, again, I disagree. I think a lot of the extemporaneous stuff going on around like Murphy when he's still human and after he's RoboCop and like the thing, I think you get a lot of that throughout the entirety of the movie.
The thing is, and I agree with you on that fact, but I also say that at the time period, Detroit and New York City, the crime rate was almost as bad as it was in that movie. Like it was pretty close. It was, and it's getting that way again.
So again, going back to my point about near future and being more on the nose because of that, I think he's seeing and what he's going on there. They're seeing what's in front of them and they're just putting that in that.
I got you.
Is RoboCop the thing that's going to derail?
No. I think we can. I think we need to move on from RoboCop.
Now, I will say, I think we probably, instead of just arguing is this or is that Cyberpunk, we can move on to just talking about things that we for the most part agree that Cyberpunk and celebrating those.
Let's talk about what kickstarted this idea for the show, which was
I want to talk about 1984.
Okay,
I want to talk about I want to talk about
Orwell's 1984.
And is Cyberpunk basically the transition from we think that the government is going to be the one that destroys us, and instead it's going to be like the super corporate elite that destroys us? Is that something that like kind of came on down the line and kind of morphed into that? Like, so does Orwell have any credit, not as Cyberpunk, but like the idea of that oppression coming from the top and who was actually at the top?
One of the big things, Cyberpunk, one of the things that Cyberpunk really has, I think, going is that they're pretty much all dystopias. And 1984 is obviously a dystopia. So there is a connection there, but I don't know if that, because oftentimes to make a dystopia, it's something in power is oppressing the people under it, be it a government, be it a military, be it a corporation. And when it's the corporation, that's usually a good sign that it's cyberpunk.
Yeah, or now really. I mean,
Well, yeah.
You have lobbyists.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I don't know. Like, I think 1984 is more like you could. I imagine that the people who who wrote the first few cyberpunk novels, they probably got something from Orwell, because Orwell was talking about a lot of the similar themes. But
right, I mean, THX is pretty much 1984, but in a futuristic setting for the most part. So that same oppressive.
Ooh. Is THX
1138?
Yeah, is that cyberpunk?
I haven't
or is that
watched
is it maybe proto cyberpunk? Jody, I think because I've
seen THX at least like 3 or 4 times, which is probably at least 2 times too many, because that movie it's good. It's very stylized. It's very bleak. It's very depressing, and it's very slow. And
which to me kind of works in cyberpunk, especially when if you want to talk about like the oppression part and the dystopia part.
There is an almost complete lack of what we consider like the hyper high science fiction technology involved. pretty much the technology is used keep people in very, very nice apartments, but you can only leave at certain times.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to procreate unless you're under drugs because they administer drugs to all of the citizens. THX is cool in a lot of ways as far as concept goes because, spoiler, so our hero finally breaks out of the area and starts running, and the cops are chasing him. And as they're chasing him, you hear like a countdown going on in one of their headsets. The cops are robots in THX, by the way. And they get to a certain point and they run out of funds and they can't keep chasing him because they're out of money. Like they only have a lot amount of money for each crime that's happening from the corporation that's controlling everything, or the military or the government or whatever. So once they get to like whatever the number is of credits, like we're at 800,000 credits, well, let's just let them go. Fuck it.
That is so on the nose.
That's pretty.
That is so on the nose. It almost takes the nose off.
Yeah. I mean, it's very close. Like I said, it's absent of the layer of the application of cybernetic wear. The everyday person doesn't have access to computers or any sort of technology. Really, they're mostly just prisoners.
That haven't watched it, so I can't really say. But that sounds more to me like a dystopia, a futuristic dystopia in line with like a 1984 or a Brave New World.
It's very
like
close to 1984 in a lot of ways, and that the only thing that really sounds cyberpunk to me is the end of it.
It's one of the reasons why I don't bring up Brazil, because that to me is more in the 1984. Like I do agree that there's a hard shunt more, and I think a lot of it is the focus between government and extra governmental entities as far as that stuff goes. And Brazil is, to me, is one of the most British movies ever.
It's Gilliam.
Yeah, it's Terry Gilliam.
And actually, I told Jay this before because Jay told me his disdain for the movie, I think.
I don't like Brazil. No.
But I saw Brazil before I saw 1984.
Okay.
And a lot of times, because of my highly oppressive upbringing, I would get to like sneak in and watch movies at my grandmother's house, and then I would read books later.
Okay.
Because that was my exposure. I didn't have my own money to buy anything, so I had to watch shit on television at my grandmother's house after everybody went to sleep at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh yeah.
Before we get to the thing that
the reasoning
blossomed this,
yes.
Talk about it. What in my opinion probably is the biggest cyberpunk thing in the world, and that's the Matrix.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's right now. I think that is the zenith as far as the popularity of cyberpunk as a genre, and well and truly so, because that, if from one angle came out of nowhere, and then at two, that was probably the most 90s movie the 90s could have ever created.
It was in 99, I believe.
99. The same year that we got the Phantom Menace, we got the Matrix.
And unlike the Phantom Menace, they created technology. Well, they created technology for the Phantom Menace too, but they created the still shot they show of Keanu, like, dodging the bullets and bullet time. They created bullet time for that movie.
Yeah.
So,
I watched
which was honestly inspired by a lot of Japanese animation.
Well, yeah, things like Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell was a heavy influence on.
Ghost in the Shell was a heavier influence. Akira was also, to an extent, a big influence on.
Right.
If you see a motorcycle part in any of the Matrix movies, Akira, the Wachowski siblings.
There's a sliding motorcycle in Matrix.
There's actually a supercut on YouTube where you can see like a whole in anime they're used quite a bit. I think the one that I watched was in anime, but you can see them in like several. There's an Akira motorcycle sliding. Nope.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I love it.
But yeah, that's something that's used quite a bit in all over the place.
I'm gonna be going silent for a minute because there was something I wanted to bring up to Brady, and it had to deal with Akira and Lupe Fiasco.
Okay, well, while you do that,
while I'm looking for that,
I'm going to talk about something.
One of his albums is named
Tetsuo and something.
Tetsuo and Youth.
Tetsuo and Youth.
Nice.
His
That is
I
a
guess his
hard
fourth album.
Yeah, that is a hard reference to
Nice.
Yeah.
Another thing about Kira, real quick, one thing that makes that film hold up is that kids back in the day when they actually had to use cell animation to make animated films and TV series, they had to use usually 24 frames a second, where they took a picture of a frame of artwork 24 times for every second of film that you watch. In Akira, there's 32 frames a second. And it holds up.
In anime where they had to like save money, they would also cheat frames oftentimes.
They would do that, and they would have still shots with just lips moving.
The original
and things.
Berserk anime goes to static watercolor shots.
Yeah.
So many times.
Yeah.
They're gorgeous. They're gorgeous, but you basically see the static shot. And
Anytime if you're watching animation of any kind, real quick, for budget cuts, if you hear people talking and you don't see people and they're showing just nature, they're saving money.
Yeah. One thing that I also want to mention before, because I think it's probably the thing that blossomed this, I think that would be the best thing to kind of close on.
Absolutely.
Is the card game Android Netrunner, which comes from the game Netrunner.
Which comes from, of all things, Cyberpunk from our Telsorian games.
Yeah. I think was Cyberpunk Netrunner the original one? Was that Richard Garfield?
That was Richard Garfield.
Garfield, yeah, created by Richard Garfield, and then Fantasy Flight Games acquired the game and kind of fleshed it out a lot. But
they acquired it through a license through Wizards, because Wizards of the Coast has the licensing to the game mechanics for Netrunner.
Mm-hmm. This is a game that if you want to play it, it doesn't really exist anymore. It's hard to find. I think there is like a project that's called Project Nisei where they're like keeping it alive and creating new cards.
Nisei, which is spelled Nisei for people who do want to Google that.
But it's a game where it's an asymmetrical game. Every game is somebody you create two decks, and one is a runner deck where they're trying to hack in and steal the secrets of the corporation, and the other one is the corporation who is trying to protect all of their secrets and advance them to where they can score them. It's probably my favorite card game. Not even probably, it is my favorite card game.
It's top 5 for me.
It's fucking great. There's this cat and mouse element because the corporation is putting cards face down into servers and then putting cards in front of it called ice to protect those servers. Ice is a term you see quite a bit. They use it in Edgerunners. So it's this cat and mouse game of the runner goes to run on this, but they don't know exactly what they're gonna hit. So they have to have the tools, hopefully have the tools to take care of it and the money to pay for everything. The runner's trying to build up their rig to have the ability to break in and steal the secrets. Everything like it's so asymmetrical that everything is called by a different term. For the runner, your hand is your grip, but for the corporation, your hand is your HQ. So like you have to, it's not an easy game to learn, to be honest, because there's a lot of nuance with it, and you have to literally learn two different sides of a game because every single game is played like that. You can't play with
because one playing a defender and the other one's playing the attacker.
Yeah, one is trying to defend all of their stuff and score out points, and the other one is trying to break in and steal those points.
As much as I loved the newer version of Legend of the Fire Rings compared to the old one, if there was one card game that was discontinued that I wish was still in print, it's Netrunner.
Yeah,
like it's such a different experience from any other card game that you're playing. Like it just is. The fact that that depending on what your role you're playing a completely different game with similar but not the same cards.
Yeah,
it's so good.
There's multiple corporations, multiple runners. There's like factions on the corporation side of the different corporations. Then there's sub factions within those corporations that are your different identities that give you different powers. And then on the runners, there's a few different general types, shapers, anarchs, and criminals. Criminals want to just they're doing it for the money. Anarchs want to burn shit down, and shapers want to do it just for the art of being able to break in and do things. So and they all function very differently. If you play a shaper runner, you're gonna play differently than if you play an Anarch runner. Like it's really, really interesting, and the back and forth and like the deck building is great because you're literally having to build 2 decks that you hope are good enough, in a tournament or whatever that can hold up. Yeah, and the way it comes from Cyberpunk is that you have these corporations who are very oppressive. They're all doing different things. You've got Genteki, which makes clones. You have Haas Bioroid, which makes these cyborgs called bioroids. NBN is like a media. They actually control the net, the futuristic internet analog. And then you have Wayland, which is just kind of your they're named
it's a playoff of Wayland Yutani.
Wayland Yutani
from Alien.
They're like your
universe.
You're just we just want to do.
We just want to do corporate bad. We want to be bad corporation
things.
Yeah.
They're your typical cyberpunk mega corporation.
One of the most realized worlds.
Yeah, like the packs of cards. It was a living card game, so when you got a pack, it was the same.
Everybody got the same cards.
Everybody got the same cards.
Yeah.
And a lot of them would have like the cycles would have storylines and different things would happen. Maybe there's like this election in India that's happening because they're trying to make clones, citizens or something like that.
My favorite story from that was from the last data cycle that came out. And the first one was called 23 Seconds. There's an outage on the net, and it lasts for 23 seconds. And in that, somewhere in the neighborhood of like $300 trillion was stolen.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, in that 23 seconds. And that whole cycle is trying to figure out who did it, why they did it, what's going on.
Nice
and
little
the
mystery
fallout
there.
from
Yeah,
that.
the end thing is the governments of the world have to call a quorum of all the leaders of the mega corporations, and they're like, you have to figure, because it starts like a war between the corporations, and they're like, you have to figure this shit out, and you're not leaving until you do, and you have so much time, or you're not leaving. Period.
Yeah,
like it's really, really cool, and just every identity that you play as is so flavorful and has so much of a story behind them.
And then Wizards said, we're taking the license back.
Yeah.
And I legitimately thought the reason why, because about, I want to say like 3 years into Netrunner being in publication, it was the drop that Cyberpunk 2077 was coming out. And you have Gwent in The Witcher. And I thought, these mad fools are going to put Netrunner in Cyberpunk 2077. So like the triple triad of 2077 is going to be Netrunner. Like you're not just a Netrunner, you also get to play Netrunner in the game. And I was like, this is going to be, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm not bitter.
They're still sitting on that property.
Bitter.
Right.
I'm
They're
not bitter.
Yeah, they're
and
sitting on that.
And then not mechanically wise, but the fucking Kamigawa Neon Dynasty was very cyberpunk.
Yeah. Well,
I loved that entire set.
It looked
the look
so
of it.
pretty.
I love the cards
the
from
look
it.
was very good. But even like Fantasy Flight still has the Android, that world that they created, because
they have all the aesthetics. They just don't have the game
they have the
mechanics.
rights to the IP
aesthetics, but they've just sat on it, and that's a great world.
They already have the world built. They just need to make new game mechanics.
Yeah, they released for their RPG. They released like a supplement for Android
called Shadow of the
Beanstalk. Because there's like a space elevator called the Beanstalk.
Nice.
Wayland owns the Beanstalk.
Okay.
That's the big thing that they have. I forgot about that. But yeah, and I think that's the last thing that we really saw.
That's because any RPG that comes out of any of the companies that Asmodee US bought it goes through this one their publishing arm. And so like any books of the stuff like that, Andrew Navarro, before he stepped down as the not chief designer, but a CEO of Fantasy Flight, he mentioned that, if we want to do any kind of RPG stuff, that we have to go through, I want to say it's Edge Books, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So they've bifurcated and I guess trifurcated as best I can a lot of the intellectual properties that that Fantasy Flight had, that Plaid had, that a whole bunch of other companies that they bought in their just wild spree of buying companies.
Nowadays, mostly Fantasy Flight does licensed stuff. Like that's it.
Licensed stuff in the Twilight universe and the Imperium universe and the Arkham Horror universe.
That's it.
Speaking of RPGs and tabletop RPGs, let's
media based off of that.
the one that started.
Why are we here, Jody?
The topic that we are talking about tonight as our main topic is Cyberpunk proper. Cyberpunk, the tabletop RPG that came out in 1988 by Pondsmith.
By R. Telsorian Games and Mike Pondsmith.
Pondsmith. I played this game for the first time in 1993. Right before I played Vampire.
Y'all keep talking for a minute.
Sure thing. It was very interesting. The world sucked me in immediately. I of course get blinded by a lot of iconography, and there's all this like stuff you have to like learn all at once when it comes to any RPG, really. But me loving science fiction so much, it didn't take much for me to jump right into it.
Oh yeah.
Funny story, real quick. So Jay, when Cyberpunk Red was coming out, ordered a copy of the upcoming Cyberpunk tabletop RPG.
I wanted Cyberpunk Red.
He wanted Cyberpunk Red. He ordered this through McNarb's
in Goshen, Mississippi.
He got a soft cover copy of Cyberpunk 2020 instead, and did not complain about it because it's out of print.
Yeah.
Or it's
out of physical print.
It's out of physical print. So he got actual. This is I think this is the actual. Might have been the actual book that I played.
That's a first edition copy.
Yeah, this might. Yeah,
I don't know how they got that.
No one knows how they got this.
Yeah.
I think coronavirus is the only
No, because that was 3 years before.
Oh, it was before.
Yeah.
It was.
We played.
It was before coronavirus.
Yeah, we played all that before.
No. You played Cyberpunk Red. The starter thing was Cyberpunk Red. No, wait, we did.
But I remember.
Yeah,
I ran that and I forgot about that. Shit.
Right. The 2020.
Yeah.
The 2020. This is the OG.
Look at that pulp white with black print.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
This looks like you could.
An old RPG.
Photocopied at some place.
Kinko's would have done a better job.
Kinko's probably would have done it. The paper feels gritty.
Yeah.
Immediately, I opened the book to Grenade Table.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, another hallmark of old RPGs.
So
tables upon tables upon.
So
tables.
Cyberpunk proper, the tabletop RPGs is I got a combination of a lot of the mediums that we've talked about already. A lot of the properties we talked about already. You've got there's Blade Runner in it. There's RoboCop in it. There's Ghost in the Shell in it. There's like Akira in it. You have like 6 major corporations and then a lot of sub corporations that pretty much run everything. The medical system, much like in Edgerunners, which we will talk about last, I think, runs like if you don't have insurance, you're dying in the street.
Yeah.
If you want to get some kind of investigation going through the police, it's just like in the heavy metal animation movie where you have to pay them first.
Yeah, everything is transaction.
Everything is transactions.
That's something we didn't mention. Metal Hurlant. Metal Hurlant is a French publication, a science fiction publication. If you know the movie Heavy Metal, they took stories from that as well.
Yeah, a lot of heavy metal is cyberpunk.
One of the best, in my opinion, French artists of these latest generations is Mobius. And Mobius is credited by, of all people, William Gibson as inspiring Neuromancer.
Yeah, I think
and Metal Hurlant and things that Mobius did for Metal Hurlant.
The graphic novel, or the comic book series that they made into a graphic novel, The Inkle, Mobius. His artwork is stunning. He collaborated with Jodorowsky for Fifth Element, I think, or it's based off of some of his artwork.
Fifth Element's Luc Besson.
Yes.
Is it Luc Besson? Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I think a lot of Mobius's stuff inspired a lot of Fifth Element.
I can't think of a French creator,
right,
especially in the film and the visual media genre, that hasn't taken something from Mobius, at least for the things that I like and like.
Yeah, because I mean, Mobius did in the Jodorowsky Dune movie that never got made. He did concept art along with Geiger.
Geiger made art.
And Geiger also didn't read the book, and a lot of those concept arts were used for Alien because they were just really weird Geiger like.
So the ornithopters, the flying, effectively like basically bugs, bug looking ships. They were went in Giger's artwork where their landing bay would like extend out, and it was a face, and it would extend out, and then there was like another look of the face on there, and then would land there. It's like, I wonder what he used that for.
Yeah,
and there you go.
He repurposed a lot of his artwork. Cyberpunk proper though. So you have dystopian future society. I would say that compared to how we are now, it would be probably like somewhere between 20 to 50 years from now if it was for science fiction reasons. If you go by Ray Kurzweil, the singularity should happen somewhere between 2064 and 2070, or we never integrate into robot. But you have mega corporations, you have suppressed society, drugs are legal everywhere.
So here's how crazy, like, you want to talk about like pure cyberpunk. So the CIA and the United States government come up with a biovirus that kills all the coca plants on the planet. So there's no more cocaine, right? So we don't have to worry about cocaine. Wrong.
Synthetic.
They make synth coke.
Synthetic cocaine.
Synth coke.
There's synthetic cocaine.
There's synthetic. So like the drugs get even more crazy. That's another good way to put the cyberpunk genre. More. Like when you're talking about the punk side of the genre, like the more explicit.
There's often an excessiveness to everything in Cyberpunk.
Everything is over the top. Human life is meaningless. Like it's like a third world country from like way back when, where any given day.
It's the starkness. You either live in a third world country, or you live on the 51st floor of a 52 floor penthouse, overlooking this entire wasteland, or looking this beautiful city.
You literally look down
around
on
you,
below
and then it's so on the nose.
Right. Yeah, it hits all the marks of what I would like to call a perfect dystopia, where the people that have money that are in power are going to stay in power. Yes. There's absolutely nothing you can do to change the system at all. Yeah, it is integrated. You're just trying to get by if you're a regular person in your day-to-day life, which is hard to do when you run out of money for your washing machine.
Yeah.
But or when you're trying to put your son through, a prestigious university.
Right.
Just end up getting in just a random car accident, and he watches you die.
Not a random car accident. Mercenaries try to kill some rich dude.
You know what they call that in Night City?
A
random car accident.
That's right. Before we get into Edgerunners, though, I did want to touch a little bit more on the RPG that had a lot to do with that show getting made. In fact, it wouldn't have gotten made, I don't think, otherwise.
Because if Mike Pondsmith doesn't create Cyberpunk,
we don't get Edgerunners.
Cyberpunk Edgerunners doesn't exist.
No, but I don't know. Studio Trigger might have pulled something out of their ass that's pretty close.
Nothing like this.
That's probably not
in my opinion. I love Trigger's visuals.
Right.
You watch Trigger series and movies for the visuals.
Yeah, because for the what the fuck is going on.
Yeah, I love how, and I was talking about this to our buddy Alston, who's running Cyberpunk games right now, that Studio Trigger had to subdue their insane over-the-top animation for this show and channel it into
That's probably why I enjoyed this more than I
probably.
should have. Yeah.
Because, when it's just people walking around and not doing anything, nothing crazy's happening. But man, you involve any sort of firearms and people are exploding everywhere.
Oh, yeah. It is
but
frenetic.
Here again, that is not Cyberpunk the genre. Now we're literally talking about
talking about Edgerunners.
We're talking about Mike Pondsmith's world and his I believe his son Cody Pondsmith. That is the world they created.
Right.
It's everything is over the top, like burn the candle at both ends. It's very F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
Burn the candle at both ends because you're going to burn brighter. Yeah. You're going to burn hotter. You're going to burn out sooner. But while you're still alive, man, everybody's looking at you.
Yeah, and I think that's a major tenet that you often see in Cyberpunk, just in general.
Right.
Is this,
live fast, die young.
Our lives mean nothing to the people above us.
Right.
So why not
enjoy
and do whatever we can to morals kind of almost go out the window because we're doing what we have to survive.
You live a life of supreme excess.
As much as we can, because we could die literally tomorrow.
It's like, fuck, do drugs, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
Please
make
note,
the money to do the drugs and to have the sex and all.
Right.
Please note, we do not live in a cyberpunk dystopia yet.
No.
So fuck responsibly, drink responsibly, and drug responsibly.
Yes.
Actually, I would suggest you probably stay away from all drugs for the most part, because other drugs are creeping into drugs nowadays, and they'll just kill you immediately. So stay away from drugs, kids.
This is the least
do your research.
Now we're in the least cyberpunk part of that. We're giving PSAs during a cyberpunk discussion.
Dude, if you want to have a realistic cyberpunk game, you'd be like, have somebody buy some synth coke and be like, oh man, synth coke. All right. Good times. Oh man, what happened to Daryl? Oh, unfortunately, that synth coke had fentanyl in it. Mm-hmm. Dead.
Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a Netflix series produced by Studio Trigger.
Mm-hmm. Studio Trigger has done
Kill La
Kill.
They did Kill la Kill. They've done Premiere, and the team that became Studio Trigger did Gurren Lagann. And they were all heavily inspired by Fooly Cooley, which came out like 10 years before.
Yeah.
FLCL.
That definitely makes sense. They also did one of the was it Star Trek
Star Wars
Dimension?
Is that what it's called?
Was that the one with like the brother and sister battling in
where they were
space?
on top of the Super Star Destroyer with no breathing needed.
Which The Last Jedi proves you don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to breathe.
Yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. It's for the batshit insanity.
You could tell it was Studio Trigger.
Young David Martinez
everything
is a top student at Arasaka University. However, he is bullied by his classmates who are whose mothers and fathers are members of like the Arasaka board, and he tries very hard to make ends meet, and so does his mom. But his mom works 2 jobs, and one of them is to steal cybernetic implants from people that die in the streets.
She's an EMT.
Yeah, and then sells them to an Edgerunner group, and that's as far as I want to talk about this, because experience this 1 to 10. They're each half an hour. I will pull out my chapter rule like I do with stuff like Dune, Sandman, The Watchmen, things like that. When you have media that is this good, it should be allowed to marinate in your brain. There are 10 episodes. They are a half hour apiece. At most, do 2 episodes a night and then stop and go to the next day. Let the 2 episodes that you've watched kind of marinate in your brain to kind of like figure out what everything's going on there. Do not binge this. Do not binge this, because this is worth thinking about in the highest sense, because this is, outside of Cowboy Bebop, the best anime series I've ever seen in my life.
I will say you could do that if you want to, because I will watch it a second time. I watched it in one sitting, and it was a ride.
Yeah,
I enjoyed the whole ride,
and
I've been thinking about almost nothing else but Edgerunner since I watched it last weekend. Yeah. So, it's amazing. I will definitely watch it more than once. I'll probably watch it several times. It's like 3 hours total or whatever. It's an amazing show.
5 hours.
Is it 5 hours?
It's 10 episodes.
It felt like 3 hours.
That's because it moves at such a frenetic pace.
Yeah, no, you're not allowed to breathe. And again, it's one of the reasons why I say take that time to kind of embrace what you've seen and kind of think on it.
Something that this one does, like it has like all of the tropes that we've talked about that make up Cyberpunk. Something that this one does that oftentimes you don't see necessarily in Cyberpunk is the characters. Like oftentimes it skips over, like the world is the big thing, or the high concepts are the big thing in Cyberpunk. And that's not always true. There are a lot of movies that are movies or properties that are cyberpunk that do focus on the characters, but this one focuses so much on the characters, and the characters are so fully fleshed out.
They are very fleshed out characters.
Let me refine that statement. Maybe it focuses on more than just one. Yeah. Like with Matrix, you get Neo and then maybe like Morpheus, Smith, and Trinity.
And Matrix also. Whereas we've talked about Cyberpunk, oftentimes we'll get away from the the hero's journey, the Matrix firmly does
the Matrix journey, yeah.
Right.
The hero's journey.
And also, and other properties like in a video game setting or a tabletop setting, you are those characters. You are one of those characters.
Yeah.
So
it's different.
It's a different experience.
Like but this one like focuses on a fully realized.
It also, when we were talking about, augmented humanity and the more technology you put in yourself in the cyberpunk world, the less human you become, or the more close to snapping is realized in many factors in this anime, and it's something they touched on, and
it's the first thing you experience.
It is definitely the first thing. The first scene I think
is the cyber psycho scene.
Is the cyber psychosis scene that sets you up for, okay, so this shit's bad for you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. If you don't know anything about cyberpunk,
and if you want to survive, you need it.
Yeah. If you want to survive, you need it, and if you need it, you need more.
And human beings are just bags of blood and bone and guts waiting to explode.
Yeah. Or a container.
Yeah.
I would really like to go into Edgerunners, but again, I have to agree with Jay. I really don't want to go into
something that I do want to like the soundtrack of this.
Oh yeah, the music was great.
Some of those songs I seriously think about adding them to a playlist.
The fact that it leads off with Franz Ferdinand as is the main theme song.
Something that I read about.
I never skipped a opening theme.
I didn't either.
Yeah,
I did because that's just my default. I need to go back because there's parts in that song that they cut out because the song is about a revolution and rising and actually overcoming, and they cut out the parts about overcoming because that's not what you do
in Cyberpunk.
You just survive.
Yeah.
Oftentimes revolutions in Cyberpunk don't happen or fail because that's just the way things are.
I love music choice in things like this because you would think everything would be techno, everything would be like high powered trance music. Nope. Here's a rock song opening the show.
Yeah,
I think that's what it made it more relatable.
They definitely, they made it realistic in that way, in that regard, and they also there is a lot of techno in it, music, but the music is phenomenal. Everything's phenomenal. The art style is phenomenal. The characters are phenomenal. The dialogue's good.
Yeah, I mean, and I will say even like this is an anime, but I don't like Jay famously not a big fan of anime. He likes basically one anime, and he.
Three now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Akira, Cowboy Bebop, and now this.
No, Cowboy Bebop, Berserk, and
Berserk. Oh yeah, I forgot about Berserk.
And I actually right now I put that above Berserk. It probably, on thinking about it, Berserk probably retakes it because the ultra violence of this reminded me straight out of Berserk.
Yeah.
Like when they would go to that.
The the characters and the way the characters look. Of course, like negating the technology parts of it, or just the humanist parts that they're in the show, like the kids, the school kids and things like that, or whatever. Very Cowboy Bebop in some ways. It's a very Western, like Trigger is very Western in their character design.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
Cowboy Bebop, like, is at least cyberpunk tangent.
I think
close
so.
to it, but I don't.
I think so.
See, it's why I stopped it saying full on, like in the footing on it. I think there's something.
I think it's got layers.
It's more far future. First of all, like when you've colonized. Though that being said, live the great life in the off-world colonies. There's a part of that in Blade Runner.
There is, but I think something is the fact that even. Our protagonists in that one are poor as shit, but they can still like travel wherever the fuck they want, kind of, and often and a big.
But are they traveling where they want or where they need to go because they need jobs because they need money?
I think just the ability, because like most of the things that you see in Cyberpunk is we're just kind of stuck in this fucking shitty ass city.
Yeah,
like that's the reason why the alternate, the original ending of Blade Runner, like. It was either Harrison Ford or Ridley Scott who was like, I don't like that because if they have this nice place that they're driving to with all this light and this beautiful and these trees and everything, why the fuck would they still be in the city in the first place? Like
money could be a reason.
Well,
people stay for money.
Well, that's usually the reason is because you can't really
fear
afford
is
to
another. Fear is another. Like
that's true.
It's like,
fear of the unknown.
Like everybody else might see that I would be happier over here, but I don't see that because I'm too afraid to get up and move about.
I think
There's
the whole
something
point
to
of
be
Cowboy
said there.
Bebop is freedom, and that rubs against the idea that Cyberpunk is often about oppression.
I think you're onto something, but I don't think you take it far enough, and that's where it falls apart. I think it's about the search for freedom because none of them are free. Not a single person on the only time that I would argue Spike is free is when he probably died.
They're free in the sense that they're not locked down because Spike would he's free from having to be part of the syndicate.
Right. But he's not free from the death of the woman he loved.
Jet is, well, yeah, of course, but like
there's other
Jet
things
is,
that bind him.
Jet is not is free from having to be the one good cop in this corrupt system. So it's that I think that they are free in a sense, but I don't want to have this whole thing being arguing about what is and isn't cyberpunk.
I think part of it is actually like what is like where do we find it? I think we had a solid definition at the beginning, but as far as what the genre is itself, I would just want to leave it.
I've got one more thing I gotta say.
But for this point, I want to say sure right here. The dialogue between Spike and God damn it, Valentine, fucking
my brain shut off, dude.
Faye.
Jesus Christ. The dialogue from him and Faye, it's like why he had to go do that because he wasn't free from it. All of them are free temporarily. They're all free in their present, but they're not free from their past. Not a single person on that.
Well,
ship.
yeah, but I don't think that necessarily makes it cyberpunk.
I think it's the search for freedom that kind of means it. But yeah, I don't think they're in any way free or any way kind of liberated or anything. I think they're from I think they're existing.
They have the illusion of freedom. But there are things because
I think they're existing in as
all
that
the time
downtrodden class.
in that anime their past is coming back to haunt them. But I don't think that necessarily makes that cyberpunk.
I opened it. Is it cyberpunk adjacent? And I think there's an argument to be made.
It's got layers.
I think it comes close because
it
does have some tropes, but like I don't think it really full on makes because just because it's the future and everything's dirty, I don't think that makes it cyberpunk.
Now, for me, there was one that I forgot to mention earlier, and I think I'm only mentioning it because of us talking about Cowboy Bebop, and that is specifically the Galaxy 999 movie and the plot of it. And I'll tell you real quick, the plot is
that's the one where's the virus on Mars. Isn't
nope.
It? Or am I thinking? Wait, we are talking Cowboy Bebop or something?
No. Galaxy Express 999.
Oh, okay.
The movie. Captain Harlock.
For some reason, I thought you were talking about the production company.
Captain Harlock is in it, but he's not the protagonist. The protagonist is a child when his mother is murdered by a robot assassin that she owes money to, and he vows to do two things. One, he doesn't want to die like his mother, and two, he wants to get revenge on her. So he joins Captain Harlock on his ship to get to Galaxy Express, which is a space train that will take him to, I cannot remember the name of the planet, but it's like Mechanus or something like that. It's a planet of nothing but robots. And his whole journey is he wants to become a robot so he can be immortal. And even though it's high science fiction, there's a lot of dark and grit to the story. So I know Jay, you haven't seen that, right? You haven't seen Galaxy.
Hell, I thought that was the production company behind the
right.
Cowboy Bebop movie.
It was a TV series. They made it into a movie. The movie's way better than the TV show and tied up everything nicely. Another main character is called Maytel, who is an android who he looks up to, but she tells him that being a robot's not really, you probably don't want to do it. There's a lot of human things going on there. But it's also got a lot of cyberpunk qualities to it, and a lot of dystopia to it. But I guess we're getting close to wrapping it up, huh, boys?
Yeah. I guess everybody around the table, final thoughts on Cyberpunk, either stuff in general with the genre or things that you want to point out directly about it. Brady, hit it off.
Yeah. This is a very, it's not one that I've necessarily like been, I've loved sci-fi since I can remember, but Cyberpunk is not something that I've had that I experienced when I was very young, but it is something that I think it's a good subgenre. There's obviously, from all the things that we've talked about, there's a lot of interesting ways that you can take it. There's a lot of questions. I like my sci-fi to either do things like hold a mirror up to the world and talk about things, or ask interesting questions, and the all the ideas that come with Cyberpunk do that. Although they do it in a very depressing way. Cyberpunk is not usually is very rarely cheery. It very rarely has a happy ending. It can be very depressing, so it can be hard to spend a lot of time in that genre. But some of my favorite movies or properties or things have to do with Cyberpunk, so it is something that I really do enjoy. And again, like, if you have Netflix, fucking watch Edgerunners. If you don't like anime, it leans way more on Cyberpunk than it does on anime tropes. There's not, like, it's hard for me to think of even things. I don't like a lot of like recent anime, but this one does it. This is great. The characters are great. The art style is great. So yeah, watch that, and watch Blade Runner if you haven't watched that. The final cut, that's the best one.
So I grew up on sci-fi television and space operas, Star Trek the original series and Star Wars and all kinds of stuff in that regard, and like really bad Roger Corman films. And I've come to the realization that I like most of my genre grim dark. High sci-fi and high fantasy are great. They're even better when there's grim dark involved. Grim dark is just violent, over the top, as long as it makes sense. Gore, maybe. Very well developed characters, very in-depth stories, good dialogue, those kind of things. Cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction because science fiction is so wide of a genre that there's so many subgenres. Like I mentioned, space opera, that's a subgenre of science fiction. Look into it if you want. I don't really care. Watch Edgerunners. Again, like Brady said, even if you're not an anime fan, I'll say if you're a fan of good storytelling, and art and music and style, check it out. In fact, just watch the first episode and see if you want to continue, because if that first episode doesn't like reel you in, it's not for you.
Yeah.
So I would say watch Edgerunners. Unfortunately, our recommendations, or what we've talked about this evening on the subgenre, was limited, not just in the fact that we only have a lot of time to talk about it. There's not a lot of cyberpunk in the world of science fiction that I know. I'm sure there's a lot of written stuff, but as far as like visual mediums and tabletop RPGs, by the way, play the tabletop RPG if you haven't. If you like RPGs, it's great. It's hardcore, and your character will not live long. So, yeah, that's me.
Cyberpunk is not a genre for everyone. Of the genres in science fiction, I think it is one of the more, I don't want to say obtuse, but it's definitely something that you don't get someone new to science fiction into. Even someone who's been in science fiction, you may not want to necessarily get them into it. Cyberpunk Edgerunners for me is finally that gateway. This is something you can watch to get into the realm of cyberpunk. Even The Matrix, which, again, one of the biggest movie openings of all times, I don't think works anymore because of the sequels that came after it. If it had been something more akin to what was going on with the Animatrix there, I would say that Cyberpunk Edgerunners to me is perfect for the young adult going into like the older adult. I'm looking at 50, 40, 30 at this table that all tell you to go watch it. And then we mentioned Alston, one of the workers over at Magnarb Gaming. He was also super into it. So we got 50, 40, 30, 20. There's a crossover appeal with this series that I don't think I've ever experienced in anime for me, at least for me, but definitely for Cyberpunk across so many age groups and genres. Cyberpunk Edgerunners needs to be watched, and outside of something miraculous in the next 3 months that we have left in this year, this is probably my media of the year. Hands down, full stop. Nothing else comes close to it as far as how good this was and how opening and welcoming it is to me into the idea of the term and the theme cyberpunk.
Blade Runner 2049 is better than the original Blade Runner movie. My personal opinion.
I also think that the final cut is garbage and that the original theatrical cut is better than is the best performed Blade Runner.
I think 2049 is better than.
I didn't
See, you're doing that as a troll because
legitimately, I prefer the theatrical cut
with
Harrison Ford's boredness in it.
Yes, with his narration that explains things that doesn't need to be explained, and he sounds like he had a gun to his head.
Until I learned that he didn't want to do that.
See, what's going to happen now is everybody is just going to completely throw all of your opinions out the window because
I didn't say anything about the director's cut versus the original cut of Blade Runner. I just think 2049 is better than the first movie.
That's also true, in my opinion. Denis Villeneuve knocked it out of the park. He's done better than
2049. I can't say that it necessarily needed to exist because I don't think that Blade Runner needed.
I like how you and I didn't plan that here at the end, and then we just ended up.
But it's still a good movie, and Brady. It's the best thing it's the best Blade Runner sequel that you could get.
Any version of Blade Runner that suggests that Deckard is a replicant is bad and wrong.
I think all of them, it's ambiguous enough because whether fucking
anything adding
whether
the
fucking
unicorn scene from Legend in order to
whether
make the point
fucking Blade
is even
Ridley
worse.
Scott says he is or not. Harrison Ford was playing it completely opposite, so who the fuck knows?
He's not a replicant. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank
I don't think he's a replicant, but I also think that it is incredibly ambiguous.
But here's the thing. But having it be ambiguous is no, he's not a replicant. Jody, tell us about Fearology.
That's not what ambiguous means.
Fearology.
Ambiguous means it could be one or the other.
It's a podcast show that I host once every so often, and the last episode's not really an episode. It's me shelling my wares and throwing my pseudo musical on my podcast platform.
What was the name of that pseudo musical?
7 Friendly Sins. By the Digital Devil.
Absolutely. Go out and listen to it right now.
It's free for now. Whenever I figure out how to monetize it, I'm taking it off the podcast channel.
That's as cyberpunk as it fucking gets.
I'll take it off the channel.
As soon as I can make money off this shit we're selling to everybody.
But no, it's probably the first project's going to be free, and then later on I'll figure out something or whatever. So, Fearology, I will eventually upload an actual episode at some point. But episode X is 7 Friendly Sins.
Was that planned, or was that just a happy coincidence?
It just happened.
That's a happy coincidence.
Yeah.
Like that. There you go. Brady, to pick one. You got it.
Our friends Jared Hubbard and Kevin Sheldon have a podcast called Silence Your Cell Phones, where they talk about movies, discuss them, and talk about all the good things that with quote unquote cinema. And they do live watch-alongs sometimes on their YouTube channel.
It's just they record their show live.
They record their show.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. You think I remember that by now? I'm sorry, guys.
You remember Kevin's name.
I got your names. Be happy with that.
That's fine.
Are they going to yell at us for talking about movies? Like we, got yelled at for talking about another subject?
Let them.
Okay.
Hey, Jarrett, Kevin, review Edgerunners. Do it. I know you want to. Do it.
So they have a podcast, so check them out on YouTube. Give them some love. So yeah, that's it.
Michael Holder and Jason Hill, which are alternates from a different universe, do wrestling and whiskey, where they talk about 2 minutes about wrestling in the week, and then they drink for an hour. It's the greatest podcast of all time. However, if you would like the real universe version of them, it is Michael Hill and Jason Holder for Whiskey and Wrestling, where they imbibe wonderful potables and then talk about the week's worth of wrestling. We saw about 20 minutes of it tonight, and we really didn't want to see any more of it. I remember when
the first hour was good, actually.
I remember when AEW was joy.
Yeah.
And now it's just sadness.
Remember when we had 2 great wrestling things happening on Wednesday, and we could go back and forth and have joy in both of them.
Yeah. Keith Lee appearing out of nowhere to destroy Finn Balor.
20 women for 5 minutes on television.
I'm more concerned with the 20 women for 5 minutes on television that he just said. What are those
That's
20
Steiner
women?
math.
Yeah, it's Steiner math, which Braun Breaker did on NXT this Tuesday, which I'm very happy about that. Crowd ate it up. I love
Paige came in as Soraya. Soraya came into the ring.
Soraya.
She jumps in the ring, goes, "Hey guys, I can't wrestle. Here's some women."
Yeah.
That was it. That was the promo.
Here's some
where
women
Tony Storm
I'm going to
just
speak
looked
for
like she
them.
was just like, I hate this. I hate
For a
being
more
here.
educated opinion on that, other than Jody's, watch Whiskey and Wrestling through your ears, because it's an audio podcast, but available on all major podcasting
You
networks.
could close your eyes and hallucinate it as well.
Close your eyes. Give me your hand, darling. Do you feel my heart beating? Do you understand?
The Bengals are going to sue us.
Yeah, you probably need to stop there before we get sued.
Am I only dreaming?
Was that also written by Prince?
Or is this burning an
Most things in that time
eternal
were,
This space is thanks to Greg
I was
Spanier
wondering
from
when someone's gonna
McNarb
stop-
Gaming.
yeah. Yes.
Come to McNarb Gaming in lovely Goshen,
Oh,
Mississippi.
it sucks when somebody steps on a bit, isn't it?
No,
Where
I was
you can
waiting for
get
someone to shut that off.
Puzzles and
Yeah, puzzles and shit.
There you go.
shit. And
We're
there's
coming up-
dice and shit.
We're coming up on spooky season, so
Yeah,
if
they
you want to
got
get
a
some
nice
spooky
little-
games,
They got a
like
nice
El-
little display of their.
like
I'm
Elder
going to-
Horror or Ultimate Werewolf.
I'm going
horrified.
to going to host a whodunit murder mystery at some point during the month.
during the month. Like,
Yeah,
is it
during the
gonna be
month
on
of
a weekend
October.
or what?
It's probably going to be the day of the party, if there
day
is
of
a
the party?
party. Yeah,
Okay. Oh.
I imagine so.
So yes, if you want to, if we get more information, we will let you know here at the podcast. But yes, a whodunit hosted by. Will it be Jody or JL?
I don't know.
Oh, we haven't figured that. Will it be the Digital Devil?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, will the Digital Devil DJ the event and then you host it and then you get
I'm
double
pretty
the
sure
money?
they already have a
Digital
DJ
Devil
for the
DJ.
Digital Devil DJ. Digital DJ.
The DJ Digital Devil.
Yeah, there
DJ
you go.
DD.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you,
Greg.
Gregory. So there you go. Normally we would say something to insult Ethan, but he's not here right now. and so
Yeah,
we
we'll have to
can't-
hold on to that.
We have to
Yeah,
hold on
maybe
to that
that's why
one.
we've been at each other's throats. We don't have a a focus for our derision.
That's fucking dark, man.
That's fucking true, man.
That's fucking cyberpunk as fuck. Holy shit. There you go. Next time on Travelers on the Omnibus, we're doing another mixtape.
Yep.
We're going to give everybody either an album or just a playlist for everybody to listen to, and we're going to give our opinions on it.
Yeah, we're
right.
all gonna give each other stuff to listen to, and then
I
we're
thought you
probably
were about
all
to say
gonna
we're all going to give each other AIDS. I'm
and
like,
we're
no.
probably all gonna have to listen to
And,
another Shinedown CD. So
I think no. I'm banning that thought.
No. If he gives us another Shinedown CD, we're listening to
I'm
it.
picking Creed.
Now he's
I'm
gonna-
kidding. I'm not picking Creed.
Everyone
I
can
wouldn't like
pick
it,
their
but
choice.
Creed used to be my favorite band when I was an idiot and a child.
I'm
What changed?
I'm not a child anymore.
For Travelers on the Omnibus, I am James McCarthy.
Brady Davis.
I'm Jody Kite.
Good night, good day, good evening, good whatever. Bye-bye.